Ancient technologies, power sources, um, ancient power sources. So what power sources, what power did the ancient humans use besides electricity, right? I believe they had electricity, magnetism, but that's for a different video. I wanted to focus on the basic stuff, the stuff that they definitely would have, that they always have access to, always have an abundance to, and most people won't disagree that they definitely had access to this. Sand, or dirt, or earth, or rocks, right? Water, right? Fire, or sunlight. Oh, this is supposed to represent wind, but fire, yeah, and sunlight right here. You know, using sun to create fire, that kind of stuff. But you get the idea. They had access to the sun. They had access to fire. They had access to wind, right, air, and then bellows is a way to harness that air. And even through wind instruments like the didgeridoo, which is an Australian wind instrument, but not just the fact that it can, you can blow wind through it, right, air. Also, sound and vibration. So that's a little bit more advanced. That's also going to be another video itself, especially for levitation purposes. But I just wanted to focus on the fact that they had water, sand, air, right, and they can do things with it. I believe that the musical instruments, like string instruments and wind instruments, were actually a form of technology. It wasn't for making music or for entertainment or for fun or because it sounded cool. I think it was actually a form of technology, but that's for another video. But in this video, I want to talk about using sand, for example. As you can see in this picture up here, the far top left, is a decent depiction of a sand engine or a sand wheel. Just like right next to you see there's a water wheel. So of course I believe the ancient humans had access to the wheel, right? They understood wheels. A lot of people like to think that ancient humans, especially ancient Egyptians, didn't have, powered technology. Like they didn't have stuff that used a form of power, something, because the idea of power is just movement, right? Something that can move something and can move it a lot, right? We use electricity to move things, right? To make our phones work, to make our cars, electric motors function, right? We also use combustion, right? We have combustion engines, right? I believe ancient humans also had combustion for that, but that's for another conversation. And they definitely use hydrogen as their combusting thing. What they use to combust for their technology. But again, that's for another video. The thing is, harnessing the elements, right? If you want to go that route, or harnessing nature, the power of nature. So the power of the wind, right? The power of water, the power of earth, the power of the sun, even the power of sound, which is just vibrations or oscillations of air molecules. So, like I said, using sand, and taking advantage of gravity. Gravity is another element, but it's just a part of the function, right? We're going to use gravity to let sand fall. We're going to use gravity to let water fall, right? We're going to take advantage of the fact that water will fall down because of gravity, and sand will fall down because of gravity. So we'll take advantage of that. And sand has weight, definitely more weight than water. So that's why sand will be a little bit better than water. Plus, it's more reusable. And if you're in the desert, right, ancient Egypt, you have tons of sand. So that's why the sand engine thing here, the sand wheel, is something more likely they use. So of course they will use wheels, right? And then they will use flywheels specifically, which would be heavy weighted sand, stone wheels, because it'll be heavy, right? If it's a solid stone wheel, it'll be heavy of spin. And you just need to attach it to something that is spinning to make it spin. And then you take advantage of the flywheel effect of it spinning, the momentum. And all you do is just transfer that spinning, that rotation, and then transfer it into something else. Turn rotation to linear motion, right? You can use it to power pulley systems. Just use it just to spin things, like a grinding disc, or just a stone wheel, right? And that you can use to grind, to sand, to potentially cut, especially if if you make it thin enough so you can cut like sandpaper, cut like a grinding disc. So they have sand, right? They can get access to tree sap and make a resin, essentially a glue, or caveman glue as they call it, and they can glue sand to anything. They can glue sand to, a stone wheel or a wooden wheel. They can make, wheels out of wood. And like I said, put sap on it. Throw sand. Yeah, throw sand onto the sap. Sap will dry up, harden, and it'll hold onto the sand, onto the surface of the wooden wheel or the stone wheel. And all you have to do is spin it, right? Make it move. What you have to do is create a gear system, right? So gears and flywheels, combine those two together, and you'll get spinning motion. All you need is just something that can push, that can move. So using sand to move a wheel, right? Or using water, like a water wheel, or water to move a wheel, to cause the spinning of the flywheel, and the flywheel will be the main engines. It's the main thing that will keep moving. All you have to do is keep moving the thing that keeps moving, right? So that we have a perpetual type of effect. Won't last forever, right? But it'll last long enough for you to get some work out of it, to get some functionality. So being able to have something that small, right? Especially like in the first picture, that cute little sand wheel toy. If you connect that to something that can take advantage of the rotation of those wheels, right? Those little gears, then all you have to do is literally have somebody who will fill the top funnel, right, of sand. Just keep pouring sand, right? Shovel sand onto the top of that, and that'll keep spinning, which can spin a pulley system, like I said, or another gear system. This can be used to spin a flywheel, and the flywheel, like I said, because of the weights and stuff like that, momentum, it'll spin, 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 and for less spinning, for less power, you can produce more power, right? Because it's all about amplification. The idea is to get more for less, right? Use less power to get more power. That's where the flywheel comes in. And then take advantage of that spinning power of the flywheel, and then transfer it into a function, like drilling or grinding, right? So, again, the fact that we're talking about spinning, the idea of literally filling up like a big tank, like a big container full of sand, right? Then have the sand run down through these little wheels, little gears that moves these flywheels, and the flywheels spin, right? Creating momentum, and using that momentum to turn wheels. You could turn wheels in a car. So you could literally use sand to create a engine that can move wheels. And what you can do with wheels and an engine, right? You can make a car, right? A truck, or this, that. So the possibility of them having some type of sand-powered sled or surf or skateboard, basically, or even a sand-powered chariot, I want to call it that. Something similar to a wagon, like a sand-powered wagon. Yeah, let's use that term, sand-powered wagon. To create a sand-powered wagon or flatbed that's powered by sand. Because, sand is more abundant. Now you could potentially use water, but water is limited because of the fact that you have to be close to water, and then you have to go keep grabbing the water, right? But since sand is everywhere around you, or dirt in general, it doesn't have to be sand. I just keep saying sand because I'm thinking of Egypt and desert. You can just scoop up sand, fill up your big container, like whatever it is that you have, whatever container you have. It can be made of wood, of course. You can make a big wooden box, a big wooden funnel, whatever, and have a whole bunch of, just fill it, like I said, fill it with sand. What you need is like shovels and buckets and stuff like that. Just fill it with sand. You'll need some type of like little sliding lever system to be able to turn on and off, right? To cause the sand to go through a small nozzle that we can, get the force out of it. Having all that weight of sand going down, trying to push its way through that small nozzle, small hole, and then you create a lot of force. And like I said, gravity and stuff like that, and pushing these wheels even faster and faster, which will turn the flywheels, and the flywheels, all you have to do is just convert that into, into whatever motion, into whatever you want to power. So you'll power it that way. And you can literally create a sand-powered vehicle, or at least a sand-powered machine. That's what I'm trying to say. So I believe they had something of that nature. They created something, some type of sand wheel, right? So, engine system, and they were able to power a whole bunch of stuff. They were able to power things literally with sand. Water is another way they could do it, of course. Possibilities using water. And then there was the air. The thing about air, it's everywhere, right? All you have to do is just extract it from the sky, literally from around you, and then run it through a system. System a lot like I said, like the sand wheel, the water wheel. You just need to be able to use the force of the air to move something, but you need to make it stronger because air is pretty light. It weighs a lot less than sand. It weighs a lot less than water. So you have to make air heavier, basically, right? So that's how you be able to take advantage of it. Combining stuff like using sun heat or fire heat and water, right? Combine those two. Combine water with heat and create steam, and use the steam to spin a water wheel. So it's a water wheel, right? And you could probably make it spin faster than if you just were to use water and gravity. So instead of combining water and gravity to make a water wheel spin, you can use fire or sunlight to boil water, turn it into gas, and use the gas, the steam, right, to quickly, especially if under pressure, right, quickly spin a water wheel, right, so to speak, or fan blade or whatever type of, or steam wheel, whatever you want to call it, and essentially create a steam engine. That's what a steam engine is. That's how it pretty much functions. It's using steam to spin things. So clearly, like I said, they have access to these types of things. So all it's a matter of just thinking of combining these things to do that process. Sound is a little bit harder to quantify how they specifically used it, but because sound, again, it's especially its vibration of air molecules, and like I said, air molecules is pretty light. So in order to make it do something, you have to be able to compress it. So you have to compress the air molecules, as well as push it, aka vibrations, right? Make it move. You can move and then do something. So being able to focus sound, so that we can focus. Essentially, trying to use sound to compress air molecules into a specific point, and you're essentially creating air pressure, right? Compressed air, essentially. Yeah. So it's similar. So you're essentially using sound to do pretty much the same thing you would use an air compressor to do. But So that's why wind instruments will come into effect. So string instruments, like if you have some type of container or something, so that they can contain air, for example, right? And pluck the strings of a string instrument, the vibration of the string instrument should be able to cause movement, right? Oscillation, vibration, right? Of the air molecules. So the vibrations of the string cause the air molecules to vibrate and ideally compress, or at least move faster towards a certain direction that you want it to, and use that to power something. You can use sound to do the same thing to water. You can influence, you can move and shape and cause rippling effects, right? You know, if you ever took a straw and blew air through the straw at a cup of water or soda, you'll see those ripples, right? So that's not too different from like air jet, like a jet ski or something. It kind of runs on the same process. It shoots air out the pipe, the exhaust of the water jet, and it hits the water and pushes the water. Essentially, well, technically, it sucks in water and pushes it out at high speeds out the back into water. But you get the idea. So that's the kind of stuff you will try to do, to cause movements. And think about that, using water, moving it at a high speed to push water, using air to push water, air pressure, right? So using air and water combined, especially if you combine it with sand, you can create a water jet cutter. That obviously I've already made a video about cutting stone using water, sand, and air, and this is part of that, right? That's why I had that idea, because of this concept of like they had access to water, they had access to air, they had access to sand. Combine all three, you can create a water jet cutter. All you have to do is just make sure you can compress the air, then use the air to push the water and the sand together at high speed, a high pressure, out of a small hole, a nozzle, shoot it, and point it wherever you want. And that's the thing, it's about focusing these forces, these things, these elements, into a specific point. Just like with a magnifying glass, you're focusing sunlight into one, so that way it can start producing heat in a specific spot, raising the temperature to the point where it combusts, and you can, burn something or boil something. So let's take advantage of focusing heat. So that's, like I said, they can use the power of the sun to heat water, and the water, especially if it starts boiling, can turn to steam, and then you can use the steam, which is a gas. And then if you compress the steam, right, and then focus it into a point, which is where the compression will come in, and then let it loose. You have high speed, high pressure, I should say, high pressure, hot air. Hot steam, and you get that. Or you can heat up air, so compress the air, right? Contain the air into a container, right? like a granite container, right? Compress it, heat it up, and then release it, and you'll be releasing hot air. Hot air has more energy than cold air. That's the heat, right? Heat is energy. Sunlight is energy. Heat is energy, so keep that in mind. So, water is good for heat transfer, or energy transfer, I should say. So you can use water as a transfer medium to transfer heat from one location to another, and then just take advantage of it. So you can use water to transfer heat. So you can boil water, right, to make it hot, then move the water to a different spot, and then use it to transfer that heat to something else, and then heat something else up. You heat up sand, and then have hot sand, and use the hot sand for whatever. You can transfer the heat to the sand, and then the sand can transfer the heat to air, right? And then you can make hot air, and then use the hot air for whatever you want to use the hot air for. Especially if you condense the hot air, compress it, there's a lot you can do there. And there's something about hot air something about moisture. Or you want dry air, right, or cold air, which won't absorb moisture. But if you want hot air to grab moisture, especially if you're going to use the moisture to get the moisture as in water, and use the water to power something, and then use it to create steam and all that stuff, and then just cycle it all around. The idea is to try to combine all these different elements that you always have access to, especially if you're out in a desert setting where there's sand and water and obviously air, and then put all this stuff together. And then with musical instruments, like I said, wind instruments, string instruments, you can use those to move things. There's even a way to use sound to spin water in a container. So if you need to spin the water for some reason, and then the water spinning can be used to spin something else. So you can use sound, right, to spin the water, and then the water will spin, called spinning a wheel, right? And then the wheel is connected to something else, right? Another wheel, another wheel, another wheel. And you have all these gears, right? And then you can, again, like I said, the fact that you can use sound to spin water, use the water to spin wheels, and the wheels, spinning flywheels, and the flywheels powering more wheels, and the wheels are connected to, vehicle, something like a vehicle, like a wagon or something, or a skateboard, or whatever you want to call it. And then you can move. You can literally use sound to power a wagon, right? A chariot, or whatever you want to call it back in the day, right? Whatever they call it. A mobile platform, if you want to call it that, to simplify it. So that's the thing. It wouldn't be that hard to create a mobile platform. Something flat, like a flat wooden, like you get a bunch of logs and tie them together, basically making like a raft type thing, and then add wheels to them, and then add this, water system or sand system, with the flywheels, which are heavy wheels, right? Heavy circular structures, connect it all together, and you can create a sand mobile platform, a water powered, or a sound powered, sound water powered, steam powered, whatever. That's the thing, like, we can do this kind of stuff, now and back then. So I wouldn't be surprised that they had these types of ideas, that they did stuff like this. Just me even using the word chariot. Chariot's not new. Cars, Teslas, right? Helicopters, these things are new, but word-wise, but they're not new conceptually. The idea of the wheel, the idea of a mobile platform, even the idea of flying helicopters, nothing new. Because again, it's all about spinning. A helicopter functions on the idea of spinning propellers in a wheel-like fashion, and spinning rotation fashion, and pushing air, and using air for lift, and these other factors, right? And then flying, right? So they use these elements, these power sources, is what I'm calling, right? To literally power whatever they want to power. This is part of why it's hard to find some advanced technology, because we're looking for something unnatural to be able to say, aha, that is technology. It's something that you wouldn't find in nature. So clearly it's advanced technology, not realizing that even quote-unquote advanced technology is just our method or human way of manipulating or controlling or using or harnessing, it's the proper term, harnessing nature, harnessing just how physics work, how life works, how reality works, how God created things, right? If you believe that. So it's like a lot of our advanced technology is based off of the same principles. I mean, electricity essentially is just our version of water flowing through a system, through our smartphones, through pipes, wires, whatever you want. I literally saw there's a cute toy kit where it uses a whole bunch of gears to literally create electronic devices. Like you can create things like smartphone, for example, or a calculator just using gears. A whole bunch of gears. I think it's called Geartronics or something that you could probably find it on Amazon. Just Google it. Geartronics. Literally, it's just a whole bunch of gears, and they use it to create electronic components like calculators. Yeah. Watches, that kind of stuff. Light bulb system. So it's pretty cool. And I believe that ancient humans did the same thing. They thought of ways to use mechanical or just movements of anything, movements of sound, movements of air, movements of water, movements of just even gravity, just things falling like water falling, sand falling, rock falling, for leverage and stuff like counterbalance. In order to try to lift things, like to lift up rocks, right, stones, and build monuments and pyramids and stuff. Even just the ability to lift a human being into the air so they can see something from the sky, and being able to fly. I believe they had kites and stuff like that. They had flying devices. That's another video I'll make. Flying devices, which will incorporate some of these concepts of air and whatnot. Helicopter, rotation. And that's the end of this video.